Hang on. Good morning. For all my efforts at organization, God continually keeps me humble. There we are. Thank you for coming today. I know the weather's a little bit wet out there. It's not really that bad. It's not 18 below. It's not that bad. Thank God for the rain. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Trust you are here by the gospel reading. If you weren't, it's in your bulletin. What is this gospel reading about today? Well, of course, we're familiar with this. We hear this every year. The man in the story is, of course, God. And the story is about God inviting people to his kingdom, and then those people making excuses for why they can't come. It's clear from Scripture and from our spiritual tradition that God does in fact invite in some way everyone to the kingdom. Many are called, the Lord says, but few are chosen, meaning simply that only some respond. This is part of the Apostle Paul's argument in his letter to the Romans. He says no one has an excuse, because if you really want to know God, you can know God. And God will judge fairly. God will condemn those who do evil. On the other hand, the Apostle Paul writes, there will be glory, honor, and peace for everyone who does good, Jew first, and then Greek. There's no partiality with God. So then, simply, we have to ask ourselves again, today, am I accepting God's invitation to his kingdom? Is this my orientation? Am I fixated on this life and the things of this world? Or am I thinking about the kingdom of God? Am I living in light of that kingdom? Am I saying yes to God? Have I said yes to him? Do I say yes to him? Sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly basis, certainly every time we come to church. I think it's very interesting that we have a convergence of three elements this Sunday. We have this gospel, and we also have the commemoration of the forefathers of the Lord, especially the patriarch Abraham, and also the commemoration of Saint Spiridon, Konyo Pala, to those who are celebrating their name day today, including our altar boy in the back. Two heroes of the faith, two men who decisively said yes to God in their own lives. What do you know about the patriarch Abraham? I trust you've read Genesis. Historians argue endlessly about Abraham, exactly what date he appeared, etc., etc., etc. I'm not going to get into that. With Abraham, we journey back about 4,000 years. He started in a developed urban center in Mesopotamia. He was, as far as we can tell, a typical polytheist. But God spoke to him, and he answered. And God asked him to leave his familiar home and journey to a land he'd never seen. God asked him to become a nomad, a step out and a step down for him. And he obeyed God. He journeyed around the Fertile Crescent, first to Haran and then to the land of Palestine. What happened to him? He lived in tents. God promised him many things. God tested him. He had to wait for many, many years for God to give him a son, an heir, Isaac. In the end, God gave him what he promised, except that he only actually came into ownership of a very small parcel of this promised land where he buried his wife Sarah and where he was buried. God tells Abraham several times in Genesis, starting in chapter 12, Go forth from your land, your relatives, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. All the families of the earth will find blessing in you. Was God faithful to him? Well, we're all spiritual children of Abraham. All of us, even if we're not physical descendants, because Abraham is the father of all those who believe. Abraham becomes a great turning point in the spiritual journey of the whole human race. Without Abraham, no nation of Israel, no Messiah, no Christ, no Christians. And then Saint Spiridon. We jump forward almost 2,400 years. Spiridon was born early in the 4th century. Probably became a Christian before the faith was legalized. We don't know that. He came from the most humble of backgrounds. He was a shepherd. He married, but his wife died early in the marriage, and he raised his children as a single parent. He also clearly endured the death of one of his daughters. He had great faith. As he grew in the love of God and man, God gave him the gift of healing the sick and driving out demons. As a result of his holy life and the miracles God performed through him, though he was not well educated, Spiridon was ordained bishop of his hometown, the town of Trimithus, on the island of Cyprus, during the reign of St. Constantine the Great. And that little village is still there, Tremithusa, still there. Called to take part in the Council of Nicaea, 325, the first ecumenical council, Spiridon surprised everyone by converting a famous philosopher to orthodoxy from Arianism. And there are various stories about this. They vary a little bit. He explained the unity and diversity of the Trinity by holding up a piece of fired clay, then commonly thought to be a combination of 3 elements, fire, earth, and water. And as he spoke, people saw fire blaze from the top of the shard and water dripped underneath. 3 elements in one. Through simplicity and deep devotion to God, he worked miracles throughout his life and became known as a great wonder worker and a clairvoyant, calling forth rain in the midst of drought, casting out demons, healing the sick, and even raising people from the dead. His hymn, if you were here, you heard it. His hymn refers to a couple of miracles. During a famine, Spiridon changed a snake into gold pieces so that a poor man could buy food from a greedy merchant who had cornered the supply. Angels sang the divine liturgy for him. People would walk into church. Where's the choir? There was no choir. Spiridon fell asleep in the Lord in the year 348 and was buried in the Church of the Holy Apostles in Trimithus, in Cyprus. His body remained incorrupt. There were so many miracles attributed to his intercessions that his shrine became a place of pilgrimage. Removed to Constantinople and then to Serbia to avoid his falling into the hands of the hostile Muslim invaders, he's now enshrined on the island of Kerkyra, Corfu, in Greece. He is called a peripatetic saint because, like Saint Dionysius of Kefalonia, the silk slippers that clothe his feet wear out every year and they have to replace them. His miracle in Corfu against the Turkish invasion of 1716 was a great miracle that is commemorated on August 11th. At the time, the island was under Venetian rule. Was God faithful to Spiridon? We should remind ourselves that our lives are full of pain and pleasure, ups and downs, life and death, loss and gain. Regardless, it doesn't matter what you do, who you follow. But what do our lives mean? Do our lives have any significance? Do our sufferings have any significance? Do our successes have any significance? Here we are 1,700 years, 17 centuries after St. Spiridon's life, and we're still talking about him, and we're still asking for his intercessions. Think about what he accomplished for God's kingdom. How many people did he bring to Christ? Think about the threatened inhabitants of Corfu in the 18th century. begging God to save them from this Turkish invasion, and he did. And people still have encounters with him today. I've met some people like that. Can we trust God? Can you trust God? What happens when you say yes to God? The short answer is that God prepares a place for us in his kingdom. And that is worth everything. That's worth everything. That's worth more than this life. 1,000,000 times more than this life. But God shows his faithfulness to us throughout this life as well. God tests our faith. God blesses us. He leads us through the hard times. Just a personal note at the end of this sermon. I remember very well as a seminarian that all of us have struggles with the church and struggles with our faith from time to time and so forth. And I'd struggled, and I was so thankful to be Orthodox. And finally we were getting out of seminary, and I had to come to God and say to him, whatever you want me to do, and wherever you want me to go, that's where I'll go. No holes barred, no exceptions, nothing held back. Whatever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go, that's what I'll do. And I told him that. Then we got ordained. Now I will tell you this. My wife and I were raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. And one of the things we never, ever, ever, ever wanted to do was live in Southern California. Now, if you're from Southern California, I apologize. You can yell at me after the service. But we never wanted to live in. We'd visited Southern California. Southern California was a place you visited. That was where Disneyland was. That was where LA was. That was where, Hollywood was. You didn't live, people didn't live there, right? I think they did, but, they were the people that stole all our water from Northern California. Those people. I never wanted to live there. And so when I got ordained back in 1999, guess where the church sent me? Southern California. And I had to swallow a few times. Sent us to Orange County, to St. Paul's. Big parish like this. Not quite as old. Founded back in the 80s. And I want to tell you something. It was the best experience. It was the best place. Now you notice we're not living there now. When the opportunity came for us to move back to Northern California, for me to get transferred up here, we did it. We did that, okay? We have relatives in this area and so forth, and so we liked living up here, but it was the best thing. It was the best thing. And it took me back. I thought, here I've worried about these things. I worry about these things. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? We worry about things like that. But God knows all about it. If you just let him lead you, just say yes to him. Ne, malista. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, whatever you want, God, I'll do it. I'll go there. It's fine. God will take care of you. The Apostle Paul writes, we know that all things work for good to those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. And the Lord still calls us. He says to us, in the Gospel of Matthew, come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Amen. Please stand.